Thursday, the 14th of October. We're at the Community Media Center. I'm Jim Mayola, and it's my pleasure to be interviewing my good friend, Richard Haddad. Hi, Richard.
Are we on?
We are on.
All
How
right.
are you doing?
Hello, Jim. How you doing?
Doing good. It's a beautiful rainy day, and so you managed to...
I actually don't mind the rain.
Good.
Especially after a beautiful day like yesterday.
Yeah, okay. Well, Richard, you're the, I have to say former now, former Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce of Carroll County.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to get to that in a minute, but let's start at the beginning. Where was Richard Haddad, where and when were you born?
I was born in 1941, believe it or not, in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And spent actually the first 25 years of my life in Brooklyn.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the big city?
Grew up in the big city. Two brothers, 3 kids in the family, all boys. I was the oldest, and my dad was an immigrant from the Middle East. My mom was the daughter of an immigrant, so that there were a lot of old world values, strong work ethic values that I learned later on. Yeah. Really laid the groundwork for my my assimilation into Carroll County, where a lot of the values and culture is very, very similar. Yeah, I grew up in the big city. I had an interesting conversation with my wife years ago, who when we first met, she was from a small town in Pennsylvania, and she could not understand how anybody could grow up in a city of 8 million people like New York. You know, I mean, what's it like? And I only had to think about it for a minute, but explain to her that my life growing up was very similar to hers, because my life was my neighborhood. It was a 4 or 5 square block area, the church, the school, the neighborhood shopping and stuff like that, my friends, you know, that kind of stuff. And I mean, when we used to go into Manhattan, you know, the city, I mean, it was a once-a-year trip, you know, go to Radio City Music Hall to see a special show or something like that. But most of my life was spent in my neighborhood, so it was very, very similar upbringing to hers.
Now, how close was your school?
School was 2 blocks away, elementary school. When I was, you know, I finished, actually we moved around a lot early, and I did my last 4 or 5 years at a Catholic elementary school in Brooklyn, which is about 2 blocks away from the house, right across the street from our church. Wow. So it was just real close, and I don't think there was a lot of side activities back then in those days. I mean, you know, the neighborhood was where the action was, and we had good friends, and it was playing stickball on the street and playing stoop ball and stuff like that. Sure. Yeah, dodging cars. Right?
Yeah, of course. Lots of cars. Now, you grew up in the big city, and you were born just as we went into World War II. So you probably don't have any memories of World War II, but probably some of Korea. You were a little boy then. And what was it like to be in New York City in the 50s? That's kind of when you came of age, I imagine.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I was born like 2 months before Pearl Harbor, but I have obviously no memories of that. My earliest memories are, except for a little picture here and there, you know, basically in the late 40s. But I think, and the older I get, the more idyllic I believe my childhood was growing up in the 50s. I think of the 50s, and there's a little bit of politics, I guess, here, as the last stable decade in American history, because in the 60s things started falling apart. Things were still very much set, patterned in the 1950s, and it was kind of neat growing up then. I mean, it was close friendships, you know, neighborhoods. It was the kind of culture where you had to watch what you did as a kid on your block, because you had mothers everywhere. You know, the mother of your friend, if they saw you doing something you shouldn't do, you got a, you know, you got a bawling out from that person. Right. So that, I mean,
and they'd let your mom know.
And then let my mom know. It was a very, very tight community. Right. You know, so it was kind of neat. Good friendships. I'm trying to think of, you know, nothing really stands out for me. I mean, I was aware then a little bit, and am aware now to a much greater extent of what the politics and the social thing that were going on in the 50s were, the Eugene McCarthy stuff and you know, that sort of stuff. But as a kid, it was just something in the newspapers, and I had no idea what it was and didn't really care about it.
Right.
My strongest memories, obviously, are of baseball.
Sure.
I was a huge Brooklyn Dodger fan as a kid.
Yeah.
And I will never forget the day that the Brooklyn Dodgers won their first World Series when they beat the Yankees, 1955. I was in my first year of high school then.
Yeah.
When it
you
happened.
were, what, 14?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, not even going on 14 actually. And I will never forget coming out of school, running to the local luncheonette where the game was on TV,
Right.
Watching the last inning or two of the ball game, and then watching Brooklyn go berserk.
Of course.
When they won, it was just incredible. And Ebbets Field, I went to school at high school, at a Jesuit high school called Brooklyn Prep, and Brooklyn Prep was located just about maybe 2 miles or so from where Ebbets Field was located.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really pretty close. And you could actually hear the roar of the crowd when the game was over. It was just incredible.
And I imagine people came out on the streets and they just partied.
Well, it was partying almost instantly, but the big parties were that night. I mean, and it was such a special occasion. My dad, I'll never forget also, my dad taking the entire family for a drive around our neighborhood in Brooklyn to watch the celebrating. And it was just every street. It was just people dancing in the streets, and it was kind of parades and everything. It was just fantastic.
How amazing.
Great experience, Dodgers were, I mean, the team that was always losing.
Sure, the
strong
underdogs.
affiliation. One of the best teams in baseball, I believe, some of the players that were on the team.
Sure.
No, it was a great event. But that's the kind of memories that dominate my recollections of growing up in the 50s.
And you lived through that. You experienced that.
Oh, yeah. It was fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
Okay. Now, what about after high school? What happened to Richard after high school?
I originally had planned, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and so I was planning to go to school. My parents were not wealthy. I mean, very few of us had, middle class, lower middle class actually. And I was planning to go to college at night in Manhattan for an education degree and then work during the day.
Yeah.
Something happened the summer between my graduation from elementary school and graduation from high school and starting college. I thought I had a vocation for the priesthood. And so within a month or two, I was enrolled in a seminary in Lenox, Massachusetts, and I started actually what was the first of 3 years of seminary training for the priesthood. Right. So 3 different seminaries. One was in Massachusetts, my first year, and then the order that I was with actually folded, and I wound up transferring to the Diocese of Brooklyn and did 1 year at their minor seminary in Brooklyn and then 1 year at their major seminary in Huntington, New York. Wound up deciding after my 3rd year of college that I did not have a vocation after all. Right. And enrolled in St. John's University in Brooklyn for my last year of college. And I had tremendous number of credits in theology, philosophy, and so forth.
Right.
And so the easiest thing to do for me was just to go for a bachelor's in philosophy, finish up at St. John's, taking a lot of courses that I had to take and stuff like that. But it was neat. It was neat. I enjoyed St. John's.
Okay. After college, what was your first job?
Social work.
No kidding.
First 2 jobs in social work.
Yeah.
Yep. I hadn't got a clue about what I wanted to do, and I suppose maybe the priestly vocation ideas was still kind of with me.
Sure.
And so it was about people and stuff like that. And I did, my first job actually was as a family counselor with Catholic Charities organization in Jamaica, New York, Queens.
Okay. Yeah.
I stayed there for about a year. And then I wound up taking a job actually just walking distance from my house. There was a foster care facility in my neighborhood, and I wound up getting a job as a social worker involved in foster care.
Right.
Basically, I had a caseload of some 25 or 30 kids
Right.
that were placed in different homes in the community, and my job was to visit and basically write up reports and just track their well-being and stuff like that.
Make sure they were okay.
Yeah, that was okay. That was the job that caused me to leave social work. Foster care is tremendously depressing. I mean, it's extremely difficult. You would know from your own background.
Sure.
And I'm a very rational person. I mean, I think I get that from a lot of the values that my parents gave me.
Right.
And when I was dealing with clients in family counseling, that I knew and they knew what they needed to do in order to be successful, but that I'd be setting up job interviews for them because they needed a job and they wouldn't show for the job interviews.
Right.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
You know, why would you not show for a job interview when you need a job? So that was what caused me to leave family counseling, and then of course out of the fire, out of the pot into the fire in foster care, and that was just kind of blew my mind. And so I wound up going to a vocational psychologist. Like, help, you know, what do I do?
Yeah, what do I do?
Yeah, so I wound up taking a lot of tests, wound up scoring high in a couple of categories, and the one that I chose to go into was personnel work, which is now known as human resources, but it was called personnel work back then. So moved into personnel work, and that started my career.
Yeah, and so where did you land?
Well, a couple of jobs early on. My first jobs, actually, that's how I met my my first wife. Was in one of my first jobs in as an employment interviewer with the state of New York, and then wound up my last job in New York was with Citibank, a big institution on Park Avenue in Manhattan. And that was actually my first jobs in management and really the start of my career. Some very significant things happened when I was there. I was with Citibank from 1967 to 1971. That was right around the time when there was a tremendous amount of activity on civil rights, the after effect of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Affirmative action programs were just starting to getting developed. There was EEO programs being set up, etc. I was just in the right place at the right time. I was given responsibility. I was an employee relations manager for Citibank at the time. Was given responsibility for setting up their first EEO program, EEO and affirmative action program. I did that for, it took me about, I guess, a year to 2 years to basically set that up. I was in a position at that point where I could have gotten a job anywhere in the country. I mean, I had credentials that very, very few people have just by being in the right place at the right time. And we were, as it turns out, we were kind of a little restless, looking to leave. I was interested in leaving New York. I had spent, you know, all of my life at that point up in New York, and we had moved to the suburbs. And this also, I guess, relates a little bit to Carroll County. The farther away from the city I went, the more I realized that I was getting closer to what my ideal living environment was. I mean, I survived and I did fine and I thrived in the city, but I preferred a calmer suburban and ultimately it turns out rural environment where I was most comfortable. And so we were looking for a different place to live, and wound up finding a job in, it turns out, Hyattsville, Maryland, which is a suburb of D.C. And wound up moving to Columbia, Maryland, which was a relatively new city at the time. It was in its first couple of years. I think we were among the first 15,000 residents in Columbia.
No kidding.
So moved to Columbia in 1971, and that's how I came down to Maryland. And I was WSSC's. It was a water and sewer utility in the D.C. suburbs, the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission. And they were having a lot of racial problems at the time. Like a lot of organizations, they had a history of racial segregation. They needed to clean up their act. They brought this hotshot from New York down, and you know, and I basically had a long career with them, starting out basically building an EEO program for them. But that was my my debut in Maryland.
So you lived in Columbia for how
25 years.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, a long time. And no, and basically it was actually pretty good for the most part, for most of the time. I mean, it fulfilled most of what my expectations were at the time. Towards the end, there started to be some problems. By that time, I had remarried. Valerie and I had children of our own at that point, and our two youngest children were in elementary school, just a couple of blocks from where we lived. And there were some problems developing in our neighborhood, some problems developing in the school that got us very concerned, and we decided that we wanted to find a different place to finish raising our family. So we started on a tour of communities in the area that offered you know, more what we were looking for, and that's how we discovered Carroll County and fell in love with the whole place. I had done some research and found out that Carroll had one of the best school systems in the state.
Absolutely.
That Carroll was one of the safest communities in the state. So that was what attracted me to Carroll. When we got here, interesting thing happened. I told you my wife was from a small town. I mean, she was instantly at home.
Immediately.
In Carroll. Oh yeah, exactly. And what she had told us, or she told me before we even started looking, was that she had two conditions for wherever we lived.
Right.
One is that it had to have a main street, and two, it had to have parades. Those are both from her childhood.
Wow.
So when we came to Westminster, of course, it satisfied her two conditions, and we knew it was just all uphill from there.
Wonderful.
For me, I mentioned before that the farther away I got from the city, the more I realized I was getting close to my ideal living environment. I tell people today that my body was born in Brooklyn, New York. It took me some 50 years, 55 years to figure out that my soul was born in Carroll County. And when I moved to Carroll County, my body and soul were united, and I felt whole. I mean, and it's a very poetic way of putting the whole thing, but it really is the way I felt. I am just so at home here, just so comfortable here.
Felt like you had come home.
Oh, exactly. I just really love it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, so we moved. We fell in love with Carroll County. Moved here, and that was the whole thing. We bought there was a new development that was just starting up then in called Carroll Point in a neighborhood that's called Sharon's Ridge, not too far from here actually.
Right.
And we built a home there, lived in an apartment complex over at Ridgeview Chase for a couple of months during the summer while the house was being built. Then moved into that development, and we are still there, same house.
When did you come to Carroll County?
1996.
Okay.
It was in actually we sold our house in Columbia in June. We lived in the apartment complex for a couple of months, and actually moved into our new home in September of that year.
So you're coming up on your 15th year in Carroll County.
We're coming next year. That's correct. That's right.
Yeah.
We just finished 14 years last month. Yeah.
And it's still wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. The more I have never been, Jim, so involved in any community before. I mean, from my earliest years of my career, I was always involved in some side activities, some politics, and some social stuff and things like that. But my involvement in the community and community activities in Carroll County just dwarfs everything else that I had ever done in my whole life. It was just. First of all, I was commuting from Laurel, Maryland, which is where I was working for, I guess, the first 4 years or so when we were living in Carroll. And even then, commuting, I was still getting involved in some activities. That's when I was the period when we were together on the Workforce Investment Board.
Right.
We Mid-Maryland Workforce Investment Board, and we sat on that board together. And I was doing. I was a resident of Carroll County, so I was representing Carroll County.
Sure.
But I was working. In the in Prince George's County, and basically had a business background back there, but and had previously lived in Howard, which was the other half of the Mid-Maryland group.
Sure.
So, but spent 2 or 3 years. I was going through the notes last night in preparation for this talk, going over some of the old WIB stuff, and that was neat. And got involved right from the beginning.
Sure. Carroll County is a unique area in that. In some places, it seems like it's a good old boy network, and it excludes newcomers from coming in. But in Carroll County, they welcome everybody.
We did
to
not
come
find
in
that.
and participate.
We did not find that. I had. It's very interesting. I did a project for the Partnership for Healthier Carroll County when I was consulting for a couple of years at the beginning of this decade. And one of the most interesting and learning projects for me was doing interviews with community leaders for the partnership on a project that they were involved in, which is part of the Healthy Communities movement in the United States. And basically what I was doing for them was interviewing community leaders. I interviewed 60 community leaders across the county to get some feedback on what we were doing, get some input on where we went with this kind of stuff, get some input, et cetera, get the community invested in the project, and discovered an awful lot of things. And one was that there was not, and I knew this from my own experience, this business of newcomers being, not liked. In Carroll County, one of the problems that we've got is all of us that move here want to be the last ones that move here. We don't want anybody new else to come. But getting accepted by the community was not a problem. I tell this another story that I tell a lot. Growing up in a place like New York City, even in the suburbs like Columbia, okay, there is something that you get used to and start to take for granted after a while. It's a kind of anonymity where you could spend 2 hours in a shopping mall and never make eye contact with anybody.
Right.
It's just everybody's just going about their business with their eyes down, and nobody talks with anybody else unless you know them.
Sure.
I was a couple of weeks after we had moved here. I was standing online in a supermarket that had been done some grocery shopping, and the person right in front of me online turned around and started talking with me.
Yeah.
A total stranger.
Yeah.
It blew me away. That had never happened before. I was going, oh my God! And of course, I found out that that's Carroll County in action.
All the time.
You know, and then I was, how you doing, hon? When I get to the cash register, and it was just absolutely amazing. And I went home to Val, and I said, you will not believe what happened today. What happened? You know, and I told her the story, and she started laughing. But that was very typical of what was happening. We began to learn. This is the way Carroll County is.
It is
fantastic.
Indeed. Yeah. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah. So great.
Yeah. So, tell me about becoming the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce.
I was, when I was still, when we were living here but still working in Laurel, I had gotten involved with the Carroll County Chamber as a Carroll County resident. Was on the actually on the Chamber board a little later on, but was doing a lot of volunteer work for them. A couple of folks and I'm not sure. Did you ever work for the Business and Education Committee?
No.
Okay. I joined the Business and Education Committee because education had always been something very special to me, and I had business background, and they were doing pretty much their main program was the Outstanding Teachers Program, which is still very, very popular today, honoring the teachers in Carroll County.
Right.
And I learned later on that the partnership between the school system and the chamber in that area is very unique in the state of Maryland. Yeah. That almost all schools have an outstanding teacher program, and they all feed in their nominees to the Maryland State Outstanding Teacher Program. Right. But very, very few of them have the working relationship with the Chamber of Commerce that they do. In any event, I brought an idea with me from my business activities with another chamber in the Baltimore-Washington corridor, the Job Shadow Program, threw the idea on the table of the Business Education Committee, and as typically happens with that, somebody said, "Fine, you're the chairman of the committee, make it work." You know. Yeah. But a couple of folks on the Business Education Committee and I actually started the chamber's Job Shadow Day program.
Which has been hugely successful.
Hugely successful. I mean, it's going on right now. It's about its 10th year, I guess, that we've just celebrated that program. It was very similar. You know, the Carroll County Public Schools had a Job Shadow Day program through a number of organizations. Right. But it was pretty much ongoing, et cetera. Yeah. Our program was somehow directly partnering the business community with the school system on a one-day-a-year event. Yeah. It worked beautifully. Yes, we used to work with the Career Connections, with the school system in general, and the chamber used to identify businesses. The school system identified the students. Right. We would match them up jointly and just provide a fantastic experience for them. But that was, that was even before I had joined the chamber's board, which was a little later on, towards the end of 2002, 2003, I guess. Yeah. But with that volunteer background I had when the chamber's executive director position opened up, actually president CEO position had opened up. I was working in Frederick County at the time, and that was in 2005, I guess. And I was getting towards the end of my career, and this just looked like the perfect job, and that's actually what I wound up. And I think you were involved. You were on the chamber's board at the time. I was. Yeah. Wound up telling the search committee that this is the perfect job for me, and this is you need to know that this is probably the last job I'm ever going to have. I ain't going anywhere, and I saw that as a positive. Yeah. And I'm not using this as a building block to go someplace else. I plan to finish up here, and I guess that was attractive to them, but wound up hiring me. But that was hired in early in 2006. Wound up becoming the Chamber's president, CEO, and did that up until about a month or so ago.
5 successful years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you for the compliment on
Oh,
successful. Yeah, I had a great time.
It's
fantastic
true.
time.
Yeah.
But that was through my chamber activity. I mean, I had been doing a lot of work with the community, a lot of community organizations before that. Through the chamber, I mean, I was directly involved in a lot of business community activities and got involved as a representative of the business community. So that was just kind of raised the bar a little bit. I had been doing, before that, I was with Rotary, one of the Rotary clubs in Westminster. We had done a tremendous amount of, obviously a lot of community activity. I actually chaired the Rotary's Community Lane of Service, was basically helping to organize. They have programs like, I forget the name of it, but it's a program that provides school supplies and clothing to kids from needy families that are going back to school. They also had a program where they would basically donate ingredients for a traditional Thanksgiving dinner, donate Christmas gifts to needy families in Carroll County. There was just a lot of programs like that, a lot of giving programs that Rotary used to do, and I had a tremendous amount of fun and involvement in doing stuff like that. I had done a lot of stuff with the partnership, I think I told you, also doing activities like that, the interviewing projects, gotten involved in community activities. Trying to think of some other stuff. I had done during consulting. I had done some contract work for a lot of Carroll County businesses. That was the first few years of this decade. And got to know a lot of, this was a career kind of thing for me, but got to know a lot of nonprofit organizations extremely well in the county. So I mean, just every aspect of what I was doing was getting me more and more connected with the community. Some of those folks that I met during that interview project that I did for the partnership before, I mean, I still know these folks today.
Of course.
It was the beginning of a relationship, you know, the connection with the community. And just started to build right from there.
It's one of the other things about Carroll County. You make relationships and you continue them.
Absolutely.
They become your friends,
Absolutely.
and that continues forever.
Absolutely. The chamber stuff, it was been a fantastic experience. I say it's been because it's only been a month since I'm gone, and I still think of myself as doing it.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was basically helping to run the Outstanding Teachers Program, the Job Shadow Program, continuing to run it. Developing partnership, strengthening the partnership between the chamber and the county's economic development function. You know, working out programs. We had a number of programs that we've started and that we continue to do together.
The leadership program is one.
I was. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's a great program.
I took that. Believe it or not, I took that class in September of 2000. I started that class, and I did it because I was just starting my consulting business at the time, and I thought this would be a good way to meet a lot of people and make some connections, etc.
And it was.
It was, but it was such a small part of what I got out of that program. As you may know, I think as you know from your chamber experience, it's a 1-year program, 10-month program, where in addition to some classroom training and leadership issues, the people in the class spend 1 day a month examining in detail different sectors of the Carroll County community.
Absolutely.
In the business community, business sectors, and also government sectors.
Agriculture is a day.
There's an agriculture day where you actually get out there on the farms and learn about farming as a business. With most of us, especially those of us in the city, you know, farming is very idyllic. You have, you know, it's nice. You raise cows and chickens and stuff like that, but we don't understand how much work is involved. I didn't understand after that how anybody in his right mind would go into farming, but I mean, it's obviously it's a labor of love.
It is.
And it once again fits the Carroll County stereotype.
Sure.
It's a big industry here in Carroll County. But we do, there's a day where we examine the health and wellness sector, hospitals, for instance, and health department, education sector, the community college, the public school system. We do local government day. We used to do a nonprofit day. We don't anymore. We substituted a media day where we basically now do media. The Community Media Center spend a lot of our time here. We actually get to know Carroll County Times, some of the radio stations, WTTR, and things like that.
You also do a day down in Annapolis.
We do a state government day in Annapolis. We do a local government day right here. We do a day on the justice system and law enforcement system right here in Westminster. Also, we do a day on, I mentioned media, I think I got, education, I think I got them all, just about all of them. But it's like in each one, you not only hear from the leaders in that sector, learn about what the leadership challenges are in there, get a whole new perspective on the school system, on healthcare and that kind of stuff, but get to meet people. I tell people, another story I tell, a lot of stories, that by the time I took Leadership Carroll, I had already loved Carroll County. I mean, I knew that there was that relationship with Carroll County. I learned through Leadership Carroll why I love this community so much. I mean, the more I probed, the more I got into the depth of what makes this county work, the more I understood, man, this is fantastic. What history here, what, caring. And the caring is the major word. You talked about that before. It's such a tremendously caring community. And I guess it just struck a chord with me. And that's just what,
I took the Leadership Carroll course in '98. And I still have friends from that class that I run into all the time.
When I was interviewing people for the Leadership Carroll program over the past 4 or 5 years, I tell them that. I also have some of my best friends today are people I met in Leadership Carroll.
Yes, indeed.
And I heard that story from so many people. I say, you are going to make some best friends for the rest of your life in this class. I mean, that's not what the class is about, but basically that's what happens as a result of it.
And there were people in our class who were born and raised in Carroll County and were astonished by what they learned.
All the time.
They thought they knew Carroll County, and they learned so very much.
I hear that all the time, and it's another thing I used to tell people in interviews. How, as well as you think you know Carroll County, you are going to learn more about it through this program. The program's got an awesome reputation.
Yes, it does.
I mean, I think part of it is because it's volunteer run. We have about 350 alumni of the program right now. The alumni actually plan and run the sessions. And we started a practice a few years ago, which turned out to be really, really good, of asking the graduates of each class to volunteer to help plan one of the days in the following year's class. I mean, and not only is it a way to get them involved right from the beginning in the program, but it's a way to make sure that we never get stuck in the same old, same old.
Exactly.
We never, this is the way it is, and this is the way we've always done it. They're always tweaking the agenda, tweaking the program to try to make it a little better. And I think that's why it just keeps improving every year.
And so if somebody didn't like what happened on Agriculture Day, for example.
Let's change it and make it better.
Yeah, they can make it better.
Exactly.
Right?
They got a chance
Wonderful.
to do that. Yeah, it works beautifully.
Okay, Richard, you're getting ready to turn a page in your life. What's going to happen?
I'm going to stay in Carroll County.
Of course.
We are in the process of, my wife and I are in the process of downsizing. My retirement from the chamber was actually step one in my retirement drama. Act two is actually the downsizing. We have a 5-bedroom house that we bought here. Our kids are all grown. And we're planning to move to a smaller home right here in the community. Don't plan to leave the area at all. I mean, we'd like to stay in Westminster, actually, if we possibly can. But the housing market being what it is right now, it's going to take us a little longer. So, you know, in this transition period, I'm basically looking for some contract work, checking with my connections around the community just to see whether or not there are things I can do and activities I can get involved in. But once we move, once we make the downsizing move, it's going to be writing. I have been writing since college on the side. I love writing. It's a passion for me. I have been, you know, I get published pretty regularly, but it's all been a side activity. And I guess my whole life I've had this, building this file drawer of writing projects that, you know, when I get to retirement, that's what I'm going to do. So,
give me some examples of the type of writing projects that you're doing.
I write a lot of social commentary, op-ed pieces for newspapers. I've been involved in, and this is actually directly related to an activity that I got involved in very recently. The Marriage Resource Center of Carroll County planned a Fatherhood Summit last year. Hugely successful event, geared at social services professionals from Carroll County. The first of its kind that was held in this area as far as we know. And on to emphasize, bring to the attention of social services professionals the importance of a father's presence to the well-being of children.
Absolutely.
The data over the past
Yeah.
2-3 decades has shown that as father absence has increased, the well-being of children is diving,
Right.
nosediving. We've got to reverse that somehow. It's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I have been involved in that issue from actually the 70s, involved in what was happening, the gender role issues and that kind of stuff, did a lot of writing on that subject, did a lot of organizing on that subject as well. And so I was able to bring a lot of that expertise to the organizing and planning of the Fatherhood Summit. Just kind of got the juices flowing, but that's an area where I've done a tremendous amount of writing and plan to basically pick up and start doing it again. Once again, it's a vitally important issue for our culture. You know, something bad has happened to the family.
Right.
We need to find out what that is, analyze it, stop it, and basically turn things around again so that we've got the kind of healthy families that we used to have.
Right.
You know, years ago and just don't have anymore.
Back to the 50s.
Well, I almost said that. It was
Yeah.
the words almost came out of my mouth.
Well,
But I think of that. It was basically the turbulence of the 60s that
Yeah.
things started falling apart.
right.
We'll never go back to the 50s
No.
again, okay? But there were certain values there. I mean, when you look at the stats on unwed mothers, okay, where in certain segments of the community it was basically maybe 3% back in the 50s.
Right.
It's 35%
Right.
today.
Right.
What happened in that period of time?
Sure.
And obviously it's not good for the kids.
Yeah.
It's not good for families.
Right.
What happened to make that happen? Get back to those values again. Emphasize them. Start bringing them to the kids so that as they're growing up, they basically grow up with these values, and hopefully we can get back to some of the good stuff.
Sure. Well, I always conclude our interviews with two questions. And the first question I'm going to conclude with is, Richard, you've been in Carroll County. I know you came to Carroll County earlier than 15 years ago, but you've been a resident for 15 years. What kind of changes have you seen in the county in the last 15 years?
I thought about this because you had warned me about the question beforehand, and I have to say that I guess I've been too happy enjoying Carroll County to have noticed things that change. Certainly not
Right.
negative anyway.
Right.
I know that a lot of people talk about traffic.
Right.
I have only been involved, my chamber job was the first time that I was involved during the business week, mornings, afternoons, evenings, etc., in
Sure.
Carroll County. The traffic hasn't changed that much the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Maybe it was very different when I moved here, but I wasn't involved in, I was commuting out of the county my first years here.
Yeah.
So I haven't noticed that. There's some new developments that have gone up. I
Right.
mean, there was a lot of area that was farmland that's now development and that kind of stuff. I can't say that it's ruined anything. I
Right.
mean, there's still a tremendous amount of farmland, beautiful country in Carroll County.
Really?
So I have to say I haven't noticed any major changes. I have not been involved in anything major like that.
Okay. Last question. If you were going to offer some advice to a youngster that was getting ready to get out of high school or college now and getting ready to start a career or start a family, what advice would you give them?
I think that's pretty easy for me. I mentioned early in the interview that my dad was an immigrant. My mom was the daughter of an immigrant. I was brought up with a lot of old world values, and especially having had a dad who came up to this country at the age of 10, not speaking a word of English, and and basically was hugely successful in his life. Raised 3 sons, sent them all to college, had 2 businesses of his own, etc. The advice is believe in yourself. Believe that you can do almost anything you want to do if you stayed focused on your objectives and work hard enough to achieve them. It's the persistence, it's the basically focus on what you're doing. The corollary to that, the flip side of the coin, is you can't blame anybody for anything that happens in your life.
Right.
You have to accept some degree of responsibility
Sure.
for everything that happens in your life. But you learn from your failures. You change so that you don't make the same mistake twice.
Okay.
And you just keep improving yourself, and that's the way you ultimately accomplish your goals. Believe in yourself.
Yes. But also, we're living in a culture and in a country where you have those opportunities. There's lots of opportunities to do. You can go to school. You can always learn. You can open your own business. You can do almost anything you want.
There is not a country in the world even today,
Right.
that offers the range of opportunity, options, freedom that this country does. Especially when I think of, I mean, when you read today of a lot of the countries in the Middle East and even elsewhere in the world,
Sure.
where there's cultural taboos, there's a lower class,
Right.
there's you know, et cetera.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that here in this country. I mean, we have people that don't earn a lot of money,
Right.
but there's
Sure.
a lot of complicated reasons for that, and it's
Sure.
not because we discriminate against people, you know, for one
Exactly.
reason or another.
Sure.
There's always a way to overcome it, and it gets
Exactly.
back to the hard work. Not blaming other people, taking responsibility for it, keep going, and you've got examples of that in every subculture in America. You've got examples of people that basically just made something of themselves because they wanted to, because they had the drive to do it.
Sure. Richard, it has truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
it's been
coming in
nice.
today.
I love talking.
No, it was wonderful. You had a great interview, and it was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Jim.
I want to wish you the very best in the next chapter of your life, and I look forward to reading some of your publications.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.